What's up? What's up? What's up?
Okay, so can you guys see my screen?
Yes, yes, we
Yeah.
can. Good.
And is it full screen, right?
Not exactly.
No. अच्छा full screen नहीं है क्या? Okay.
Yeah, full screen. Go ahead.
Is it full screen? You're not seeing my tabs and all of that.
We can see the
all-
tabs.
We can
all
see the
20
tabs.
You can see
Okay.
the tabs.
Now you should be seeing the full screen, right?
Yes, now it is.
We got it.
Okay, great. A lot of familiar faces today. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. I see Victor Baba also here. So welcome, Victor, as well. And yeah, you guys can turn on your video if you want. Don't think of this as just another webinar. Think of it as a sort of a meet where we're discussing an important topic which is happening right now. And it's always good to put names to faces and also see who's around and get familiar with you all. So let's treat this let's take this opportunity to also know each other in addition to learning something and discussing something important. But you can mute yourself. In the end, I think we'll try to have at least 10-15 minutes of open discussion where we can have any thoughts or discussions or anecdotes that you have around what's happening in the industry, and try to make it very, very casual and open kind of session, this one. So yep, so I think that is typical of how cut short events are. Cut short, right? So just try to be as candid and straightforward as possible. We believe that we're all trying to figure out things together. Yes, some of us have been close to something, so we may have different perspectives, but eventually the eventual truth and reality is somewhere in between. Nobody actually knows complete thing, right? So all of us are trying to figure out things together. So that is basically the background of how this event will be run. Today, I have two special guests and panelists today in this event. Let me introduce, or maybe I'll ask them to introduce themselves. But both of them have been in the industry very, very close to this space. And this space has actually seen very, very, big changes recently, at least underground, right? May not be very, very overt at this point in time. But I remember when our sales team was having conversations with a lot of TA people, TA leaders, a lot of them were actually talking about assessments. And they're talking about, what will happen to assessments. And they shared a lot of their worries or their thoughts, and they were not sure what's happening. So we thought, it will be good to invite two of the industry leaders here. And coincidentally, both of them are called Sachin, right? So we also tried to make a meme out of it. I hope you saw that. Yeah, so both Sachins are here. It's going to be a blast. Let me, ask them to introduce themselves. In the meantime, before we begin, and before they introduce themselves, we have a small contest that we have for this event. There's a LinkedIn post where we are going to capture all the important insights, interesting takeaways from this event. So please, post your screenshots, post your thoughts, whatever you like, whatever resonates with you. Try to put it there, and one person may win a fancy lunch or a dinner, whatever is your fancy, right? So you can choose either of those two, and we'll try to pick a winner, but play fairly. Okay. I know TA people can be very creative sometimes. Okay. So yeah, I think the team can keep the link of that LinkedIn post in the comment section, in the chat section, and then let's begin. So let's start. Let me first invite Sachin Gupta from Hacker Earth to introduce himself and a bit about what Hacker Earth is solving.
Thanks, Nikunj. Excited to be here. Very relevant topic. Like you said, it's been on the minds for almost everybody we've been speaking to, whether it's customers or even practitioners in the industry. Everybody has been thinking and asking about how generative AI is going to impact almost all aspects of life. What I find actually most amazing about this tech is that there have been like multiple trends in the past which have come, and some of them have created a longer impact, some of them have fizzled out. But the thing about generative AI is that even though it's in its nascent stage as of today, it is having a real impact on almost all functions of business, and like without somebody having to go through a steep learning curve. So it's like it's today, now, here, and having an impact. And I think that's exciting and scary both at the same time. And what's even more interesting, it's in its nascent stage. So this is only going to get better as time moves forward. And obviously it will have an impact on our industries as well, but we'll obviously talk about it. Very quickly about myself. I'm the founder CEO at Hacker Earth. I've been doing this for quite some time now. Hacker Earth is a technical skill assessment software and a developer community. We stand at about more than 7 million developers plus today, working with 600 plus customers globally, largely focused on US and India. And our goal is to make the whole, to essentially match developers to the right opportunities wherever they are. And we do that in a skill first manner. So the core of what we do at Hacker Earth is to be able to identify what skills a person has, and then use that information, leverage that information to connect them to the right opportunities. So excited to be part of this discussion, and over to my namesake for his introduction.
Cool. Thanks, Sachin. Thanks for giving a good speech. So guys, I'll not give as professional speech as Sachin shared here, but yeah, just first, so about me, I'm Sachin. I'm the founder of Interview Vector. I've been relatively new to the space. I've been here for in the TA industry for the last 3 years, where we have helped companies with our interview as a service solution. We are the market leaders in this space and catering to 200 plus clients within India alone. And some of the companies who are using us are Flipkart, Ked, Dunzo, Swiggy, and others. Now coming back to the topic, I think the real impact, it's as impactful, generative AI is as impactful as it can be. You can use even ChatGPT right now to actually capture the takeaways and insights to create a LinkedIn post and get a free lunch. So you can use the technology even right now. So why not use it in assessments and other things as well, right? So yeah, over to you, Nikunj.
Okay, so thank you for the introduction. Interesting topic. So I think you guys will have a lot more to speak on. And the audience is very, very learned and very excited. So I think they're going to also have more questions for you. And you gave them the idea. So they're also going to use ChatGPT to throw some curveballs at both of you. So good luck with that. So let's begin. Okay, so why this matters, right? I think as like most things TA, right? And most things that change very fast, there's an opportunity and then there's a danger, right? So if we don't have this discussion and we don't think about it, maybe nothing will happen. But if something happens and something changes dramatically, two things will happen. Either there will be an uphill battle for good talent, which we all are facing anyway, even though it is less of a tough battle right now as compared to what it was 2 years ago. But there's still a battle. I mean, people are still not able to find talent, and they're not able to still close talent. And that's not only going to become tougher. And if we don't understand the space, because it's in a technical skill, I think Sachin put it, it's all about skills, right? And if it's all about skills, assessment and measurement of skills is a key part of tech hiring. If we don't have the plan, if we are not thinking about this, we'll miss good talent, which will be hidden around us, and we'll not be able to assess and we'll not be able to uncover them. And if we do or if we do not, regardless, we have a very, very high cost, time and effort. There will be severe funnel problems. People will not take the test if you are making them do something which is not intuitive to them anymore, or you're testing the skills that are not relevant anymore, right? So there'll be, uphill battle in terms of getting the talent to take the test and have the healthy funnel of your top of the funnel of recruitment. And second is, you may end up hiring wrong people. So you might be, if you don't fix assessment, if you don't think about it, eventually you might hire people who look right, but who actually don't have the right skills, which are required right now to operate in an ecosystem like today, right? So of course, these are the two issues and two reasons why why we are here in this room. It's 8 p.m. in India, quite late, but I think there are 110 people in this room, so that's great that people want to know more about it because they understand the gravity of this. I think I'll just cut to the chase in terms of opening a topic so that there's ample space for discussion in the latter half of the event. So the first thing that comes to our mind is how much of a big deal it is, right? What happened in last 3 to 4 months? Till December, January, no one was talking about it, and suddenly, I think, as Sachin said, the adoption has been massive. 100 million users of ChatGPT within weeks. It has been unprecedented in terms of adoption, and that is seeping through the society, seeping through all the professional landscape very, very fast. And to understand the extent of the adoption, what we did recently is we did a survey of developers on CutShort, and and we found something very interesting. We were expecting some good numbers or good adoption numbers, but I think it's actually better than or more than what we expected. So we realized and we found that 71% developers are using ChatGPT like tools at work, and 77% people are using it to code faster or to analyze improved code. There were other use cases like testing your code, generating test cases for your code. But eventually we realized that 77% people are using ChatGPT to code faster, to generate boilerplate code, to also analyze and improve code, right? So a lot of big adoption already has happened. And then we also asked them that, now, okay, you are using it, how often and how frequently are you using these tools? And we realized that 17% people also said they use very heavily, which is lower number in contrast to my expectation or expectation. But 76% people saying that you use sometimes. So almost 91% people using heavily or sometimes. And I think the way it is going, the 17% is going to increase because as they start realizing the value of it, more and more people will shift from use sometimes to use heavily. And I think I'll get to hear from Sachin that what he thinks about this adoption curve in India, because this is Indian talent pool that we're talking about, and how does he think, or how is he seeing that the whole adoption of AI tools in the Western world, especially in the US. But why it is also going to increase more in India as well is interesting, because if you look at the right side graph, companies in India are either not doing anything, have no say. 34% companies are not having any say on whether developers in their companies should use AI or not. 36% people actually encouraging. 36% companies are saying they want to encourage the use because they want better quality, better speed, of course, right? So everyone wants that. On 22% companies are saying use this responsibly. So they are okay with using AI and they're okay with their developers using AI, but they want better privacy, better intellectual property right protection, and other concerns. But they are saying use it, but use it properly. And only 7% companies actually are forbidding the use. So if this adoption is anyway very, very mainstream in the consumer audience, and companies are also okay with it, as if anyway, the companies don't really have a lot of choice in these things, right? It just gets adopted by developers. So, but even then, I think since only 7% companies are actively forbidding it, 93% companies actually are okay with the adoption. So this 17% in next 6 months and then next 1 year is only going to increase. So which is very interesting. And now coming to the question that this is coming from a survey of Indian talent pool. Sachin, since you are running Hacker Earth primarily these days in the US market, right? Do you think this adoption pattern and these insights are any different in the US, more pronounced or less pronounced in the US as compared to India?
Yeah, so first of all, very encouraging data. I'm pleasantly surprised to see that if you look at it, only 7% are forbidding, and when somebody doesn't have a say, then the force of nature will take, where it goes. So, and as we all know, it is so powerful that people may start adopting on its own. I don't obviously have a survey result like this, but what I can tell you based on my interactions with people around here, there are a few sectors or segments that we can look at. If you look at the Bay Area, absolutely. I mean, like almost every other person is not just talking about it and using it, and even in tech. Now, within that, if you look at big tech, the likes of Google, Facebook, Microsoft, barring Microsoft, but others, because they have such a um, rigid process, which is obviously needed for the quality of software they produce, a widespread adoption within the company, fully integrated into their SDLC is going to take a little bit of time. So what I'm saying is, while people are experimenting with the technology, are they using it like right now to do production level code? Maybe not, because it's a big ship and big ships don't change that quickly. But if you go into the tech startups or smaller organization, there has been a massive adoption there. And then of course we have the laggards, which are large enterprises. But even there, I think all of you might have heard sometime back, Samsung opened it up to everybody, and then they had some legal troubles because of IP and stuff. So I think everybody is very interested in figuring out how the technology can work, and they want to adopt it. But obviously they want to make sure that they don't step on the wrong side of IP and other legal issues that might creep in. So overall, I would say the adoption is more pronounced. The bigger players are approaching it more tentatively, cautiously, but it's not a matter of if, it's more a matter of when this will become mainstream.
So any comments on the use cases of AI for developers? So when we ask them what are they using it for, most of the people are saying that they're using it to generate code, to analyze their own code. So what are as per the current models that we have, right? What parts of development work is actually very, very efficiently and effectively being done by AI, where developers are already using it, versus where AI might have to do a bit more groundbreaking work to do before it reaches a level of the human judgment that developers need to have. And both of you can come in if you want.
Sure, I can go first, and then would love to hear from you, Sachin. So my take is, and see all of this with a big grain of salt, because I think 2 years back, nobody, while GPT was there, GPT-2 was there, 1 was there, nobody expected it. And I was actually reading a very interesting article by this professor at NYU. So, I mean, there are a bunch of interesting things in there, but one thing that kind of stood out was they got like industry experts together about 2 years back to just estimate what would be the how mature the technology would be. And you'll be surprised that, and these are guys who are in the industry, who are seeing these evolve. What they projected for 2024 was already done by the summer of 2022. So the tech is about a year and a half, or no, 2.5 years ahead, right? So things are changing very fast. So nobody has a crystal ball. But my take is, the larger human thinking and problem solving doesn't go away. I've tried a lot. I played around with GPT. Whenever you give it a large problem, it struggles to give you a relevant answer. But as you start breaking down to a very instructional specific problem statement, the output quality improves significantly. And that's what's happening even in code generation. If you tell exactly what function it needs to implement and what constraints it should keep in mind, it does a good job. If you give it a high level problem, it will probably struggle. It's great at doing mundane stuff like probably generating test cases, and none of the code or anything that gets generated is 100% accurate. So obviously there is this human layer of debugging and analyzing what is being generated. So like, you can't expect the system to work on its own. You got to step in and kind of review and make sure everything is right. But like generating test cases, writing documentation, creating a skeleton code structure, filling in typical functions, optimizing your code. And I think the last part is very, very significant, particularly for young developers, because people typically understand the logic of how they should what they're trying to solve, but they may not know the intricacies of the programming language to know, okay, what are the concepts I can use to write in an efficient way. Like I've coded in Python, but if you ask me about Lambda functions, I get clueless, right? And in some places, Lambda functions are very relevant for that particular problem task that you're doing. So those kind of things become very easy. But the high level architecting the solution, problem solving, coming up with the right, even picking the right technology sets, these are all things that we humans do a lot better, and hopefully will continue to do a lot better.
So I think that brings to this.
I think I would love to add a few things that we have tried out. You're able to hear me, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
I was just putting on the screen what Sachin just said. Skills that are more important and the skills that are losing value, or skills that are going to be done better with the AI. So those are on the right. Yeah, go ahead, Sachin.
Sure. Cool. That helps. So I think I do agree to a lot of things that Sachin said. It's weird to say that Sachin said, right? Cool. So
I'll use SM and SG. Let me use those two initials.
I think let's use college slang, right? Ki Gupta,
Okay, that works.
And we have now we coming back to the point. We have I have personally experimented a lot with ChatGPT, and even our team is using ChatGPT in the day-to-day work, be it the tech team, be it the non-tech team. Well, where we have seen success is, as Sachin said, right? Ki when you're writing very low-level code, for example, if you want a function, very specific function, or if you are creating a view, let's say a front-end view in React.js or JavaScript, right? Those specific functions, those specific things can be created using, generative AI, or you can create a skeleton of that. That's very easy. But creating a whole architecture, well, first of all, that's not that simple. Second, it takes a lot of variables as well. For example, which components of which technologies your team is comfortable with, which technologies will give you speed, or given you particular very specific use case, what you should go with, rather than giving you a very generic use case that, hey, in overall sectors, this is going to be the architecture that you should use. Second, we have tried out creating, not actually creating, but evaluating the code as well. For example, let's say if my teammate has created a code, I want to evaluate that what's the quality of the code and everything, right? Because in assessments also that's useful, as well as when you're working regularly in your day-to-day work, you also try to evaluate the code quality as well. I think there's still a lot of groundbreaking innovation that needs to be done. A lot of it gives very simple recommendations, or the recommendations it gives, they are not correct to that level. That's the second thing. And the third thing is where we have seen great success is documentation. I think everyone in this room, or in the whole world, every tech leader will agree that most of the techies, they don't write documentation. सबको मौत आती है documentation लिखने में, right? एक Google Doc, एक conference का page लिखने में मौत आ जाती है. So people are using ChatGPT to create documentations and everything, and that too in a very formal manner, which can be passed on to the to your teammates or the future teammates. So I think that's where we have seen great success, as well as, yes, creating test cases and other things.
Yep. So I think that kind of emphasizes what Sachin also said, and what is there on the picture, that higher level skills of architecting, DevOps, and debugging, the system design, those things will become actually more important, because you have to get those right. And the lower level tech documentation, knowing a function here and there, what library is used for that, and writing documentation, writing functionally and syntactically correct code, which has which has very few bugs. Those things can be very, very easily automatable and done through AI. And that's where adoption is right now. Unless, of course, we see a generation shift in where some of the things on the left also start coming on the right, because as someone said, right, there's no crystal ball. And the way adoption is happening is that people are like, in tech, always you have the blocks, right? And the blocks create a layer of abstraction. And when the simpler the things which are complex, they start getting built on top of simpler things. So let's see how that evolves. But as of now, the adoption that we are seeing is on the right side, where people are using this to automate most of their mundane stuff and generating code and maybe improving the quality and optimization of the code. So the questions that will come up, in our minds, right? Coding, right? So actually, and this is why the topic of this event today is about coding, test, and assessments. So a lot of people used to send coding test, right? Where you have to write, to solve a problem, you have to, let's say, 2 strings and combine them together, create something else, or flip the strings or something like that, right? So is those kind of coding tests and those coding as a skill, first of all, we'll come to the assessment part later, but coding itself as an activity or as a skill, is that relevant, right? And we just talked about it, but if you want to add some more color to it, do you think people in the future, or let's say 6 months down the line, software developers will have to write code from scratch, and is that a skill worth valuing in the developers?
You want to go first, Mithun?
Sure. So I think you'd say, coding is never going to go away together unless until there is again a crazy groundbreaking innovation that comes up in even ChatGPT right now. For example, earlier, back in 1990s or 1980s, people were the languages that they were writing code in. Now they are not relevant, right? Now people started using C++, Java, then now Python came, and it has become more high level language than the other low level languages, right? And there are more and more languages coming up to make the life easy of a developer. But right now, as I can predict I would say, let's say next 5 years or next 10 years, I don't see coding going away. Reason being, obviously, life of a developer will become easy because of ChatGPT, and they can create code using generative AI, very fast chunks of code, not the whole code. But you will still need to understand what's written, what's the code about. For example, let's say if you have a company's code base, and if there are any issues, let's say you're going to develop on something on the current code base that you have. You will have to understand what's the code base about, what does that function does, right? That's not something that ChatGPT is going to will not be able to do it for you right now. Or let's say in case there's an issue, there's a production issue or production bug, whatever happens, you will need to go and understand what's the basic things about how this is working. Only then you can either build on top of that, or either you can debug on top of that, right? Or you can optimize that. It's not going to, as Sachin mentioned, ChatGPT is going to help you create smaller chunks of code, but it's not going to, give you overall analytics over the whole code base and how to do things. It cannot give you that. So basics will always remain same, and people will need, managers will need the developers to understand the basics and grasp them properly. But yes, in the day-to-day job, I think what people are able to do right now, they should be able to do at least 1.5x or 1.4x more in the day-to-day job, because a lot of grunt work will be automated. So I think that's my take on coding.
I think if we take an analogy of, let's say, writing emails, right, or writing blog pieces. So anybody in the content marketing, content writing kind of profession, the end blogs and the end emails can be written by ChatGPT very fast. It can give you more combinations and write combinations, catchy phrases, vocabulary it can improve because it has a better vocabulary as well. But how to stitch those blog pieces and emails together to create an experience for the end user, that is something that is very much a higher level skill. Now, to have those higher level skills, you still need the lower level skills. You can't just totally escape that. Okay, I can't write an email, but I'm a greatest content writer, or I'm a greatest salesperson, without having to ever write email, right? So, because eventually you need to have full control over the craft that you have. So is that analogy still relevant?
Yeah, totally agreed to that analogy. You will, if you can't skip the experience of writing emails and everything, right? So I think that's still very relevant.
And just to add to that, like I was mentioning earlier, obviously the what it generates today is not always correct, right? So if you don't understand what it is giving you, then you can't trust it blindly. Like I've personally had conversations with GPT where it is just I almost felt like the system is trying to fool me because it doesn't want or know. And I know I'm personalizing, humanizing the system, but it's a system. So it has been trained to always respond. Whether the response is correct or not doesn't matter, right? And that is a challenge. Like at least a human would say, okay, I don't know. It rarely says I don't know. So you got to know what it is saying and be able to understand it. But having said that, I feel, and this is kind of alluding to the other points that you have on the slide, I feel there's going to be an impetus for software developers to change their fundamental skills, because if just writing code is going to become less valuable because now a system can generate it, which means there is a shift happening from a lower order skill to a higher order skill. So we're saying that what to do, how to do is still relevant, but actually generating and writing that code, just like you want to send, like taking the email analogy, you want to send an email that helps you close a deal, but you got to know who you want to send it to, what kind of premise you want to set up, what kind of FOMO you want to create. If you just ask GPT to give you an email, it'll give you any random email, and that's not gonna do your job. So the definition of a problem solving is still going to be there, but just writing becomes less important, which means you look at it as a productivity boost, but also a change in your skill. So you got to move from a lower order skill to a higher order skill. And hence, I think the entry level and junior jobs, their definition would change. The premium on those jobs would reduce if you are only generating or writing code. But if you're able to migrate and say, okay, I also now know a little bit more about architecting, I can do better problem solving, then your value would, I would say, increase disproportionately. So it's kind of weird that if you actually move fully to a higher order skill, you are far more valuable because one person can now get a lot more done. But if you get stuck at the lower order skill, it's just, okay, I know how to write good code, then you're becoming less and less relevant as the time goes by. Now, of course, the time scale is not months here. We're talking probably years. And not just from a technology point of view, but even adoption for things like these take time. I think the issue around IP and ownership is still very murky, and society at large needs to solve for that. But that will mean premium on entry-level jobs reduces, salaries, there might be a salary drop, and all of those kind of shake-up in the market can take place.
So you already answered some of the questions written here, but I think interesting point made, that just because writing can be done by ChatGPT, does it mean we stop teaching our kids how to write emails, right? How to do business communication. You still need to tell them that. People need to still be good at it. Similarly, I think software engineers need to be good at coding, although code can be generated by machines, but you still have to understand the code, and you still have to purpose the code in the right direction, right way to solve the right problem. So I hope that analogy kind of makes it more easy for people to understand. And I think you already mentioned about entry-level jobs and junior jobs, right? So similar to the email example, now someone who understands how to write emails, how to write content. Now the person enters the industry, so they know that, but then soon they have to shift towards higher order skills. Earlier, I think we had a we have been having in last 10-15 years a very linear journey where you start coding 2-3 years, you're just coding and interning, and then you start leveling up after a bit of time, and system design and all those higher level order skills only come to you or you are exposed to them after 5 years, 6 years of experience. But they'll have to do it faster because now there is less premium, there's no need. So I think people need to be hired, and they need to very gradually move up in the skill order. If they don't, then they become less valuable, at least, and salaries also drop. But it's like a curve that if you get stuck there, then your salaries drop. If you really break out of that mold, then actually you are far more valuable, and your true value in the professional landscape will unlock if you are able to go there. I think important question that I keep getting from a lot of people: what impact it has on the overall jobs for software developers. should we ask our cousins or niece, nephews to take engineering courses anymore, or should we ask them, no, don't go there. This is not this is not really a lot of number of jobs out there.
Scope khatam ho gaya.
Yeah. So I think we were having this discussion, right, yesterday, and it came out that when this kind of thing happens, like when something becomes very easy to do, the cost of doing that becomes lower, and hence adoption, the demand in the industry increases. So I think it will. So I think my guess is that it will create more jobs, because the aggregate number of jobs will increase. There'll be more tech projects. The tech projects today that are not being that are not coming to the market because of cost barriers, they will now come in the market. So there'll be more work done on the tech, but the value per project might go lower because now you don't need an army of developers to do it. So the human cost has reduced. Something very similar to the way buildings and construction industry works. 10, 15 years ago, everything was being done by manual labors, and the cost of the whole thing was very, very high. But now with robotics and automation, it can be done very fast. So now we are seeing lot more buildings getting made, and the cost of construction perhaps has gone down as compared to manual labor. But overall, aggregate construction industry doing well. There are more projects, more demand for housing because of affordability and the economics of this, right? So does that make sense to you too, or do you want to add some nuance to it?
No, I think that resonates with me, what you just said, that overall, if you look at software development as an industry, that will only increase. There's already a software explosion, I feel, but there's going to further accentuate the software explosion. Smaller teams will be able to do a lot more. Barrier to entry to creating projects, like you said, would reduce drastically. A team of 5 people may be able to do what a team of 20 people were able to do earlier, right? And that kind of doesn't mean that we'll have a reduction in 15 jobs. We'll probably have 4 more teams trying to do 5-10 other things. So overall jobs reduction will not take place, or is less likely to take place, but there will be some shift in value. Obviously, with the example, taking on the example that you took about construction, while the industry has moved forward, the value has now become more concentrated with people who have the ability to use automation, and people working on automation are probably, that value has gone. If you look at it in absolute sense, and I kind of look at it, I look at the industrial revolution as an example. If you go back, right, if we look at the average income in family, it has only increased post-industrial revolution. It did not kill jobs. While it did kill artisanal jobs, it moved people to factories, and ultimately the living lifestyle of the family improved. But it also led to wealth and power concentration, right? And that's been cited as one of the issues with capitalism. So I think something similar may happen, that because more teams will be able to do a lot more, something gets successful, they get bigger and bigger. And I think that's the nature of capitalism. We ultimately are moving towards efficiency, and that will lead to concentration of wealth. But net premium reduces slightly, but net jobs will only increase. If definitely not decrease, may even increase.
So while we're talking about software development jobs here, since a lot of people are in TA and recruitment in this room, right, they also can feel safe that they will have more projects coming. They will be continuously required to hire more. It's not like, oh, tech hiring is going to go down, so why you are in this industry anymore? So I hope that kind of allays their fears around the whole development is happening. Sachin, you want to add something? Mittal, you want to add something to it?
I think we were already talking about tech, right? There are TA in the community as well, right? I think it goes the same, almost similar to the TA folks as well, right? Their productivity will be, and I see a lot of comments in the chat section as well from the community. I think the productivity of the TA folks will also go up. Now it's up to everyone that how personalized are they creating, how great they are making the use of ChatGPT or generative AI. For example, if people are just putting in, hey, just create me a JD of software developer, backend node, just that. If you give this input to generative AI, kya kar lega wo bhi bechara? You will have to give personal specific content so that it can create hyper personalized JDs for you, or whichever way you are using. And I think Victor has mentioned is in the chat as well a lot, right? So I think people will, the TA community will also have to adapt to chat GPT. It's not like that the tech hiring or other parts are going away, but it's going to be more, you'll have to educate yourself more to use it in the right manner and drive your career forward.
Yeah, I think great point made. While as we were talking about software development jobs, but I think the same physics laws of physics remain the same, right? So they were same in the industrial revolution time. They were same for construction industry. They're same for techies, and they're same for TA folks as well. So I think we're going to talk more about it. I think a lot of discussion already happening in the chat section. We'll go there. Let's move forward and let's see. Now we have talked about what is happening in terms of the skill change, or is the industry demanding different skills right now? And what we concluded is that yes, there is adoption by developers, but on the ground, the skills have not changed right now. They can use some of the AI powers to improve and do all of that, but they still need that software engineering principles and fundamentals in place. Now with that, how is the industry responding? So now on the ground, the skills requirements are not changed much. But in terms of assessments, are we seeing some changes in the way companies now want to do assessments, or they're already seeing some problems in the wild while candidates are taking a test? So we have a poll. Shauna, can we have the poll? Okay, so please take a bit of time to answer these questions so we understand, in this group, in this room, what is your experience? Is there something which we are learning about the group here? Shauna, please keep us updated how many people have answered. We have
Yes, we have about 15 people who have answered so far.
15. Come
Yeah.
on. We are 99 people in the room, so at least we need 70, 80 responses. We're not moving forward if we don't have enough quorum. So please, if you want to move, sleep, eat, have dinner, have a wine, have a glass of wine, please go ahead and answer the questions. And I think all these questions will be able to, we'll be able to use them to direct the flow of this discussion as well.
%46% through, waiting for the half of the room to give their answers.
This time of the day in India is like eating time, right? So people might be cooking. In Bangalore, people might be caught in the cabs. I saw someone who was driving back in a cab. I think was, let me see.
Neha.
Has the eating time changed? Because when I was in Bangalore up until 2019, I never had my dinner before 9:30 p.m., even sometimes 10 p.m.
I think it swings very widely for me. But I think in general, if you look at whenever you are going back home and you're seeing a lot of red in Google Maps, or you are seeing a huge waiting in a Swiggy orders, that's the eating time, right? So most of the restaurants are very, very full in India, and restaurants here are very, very sad about it, that in India everyone wants to eat dinner from 8:30 or 9 o'clock, not even 8:30. From 9 to 10 is a peak hour. Everyone wants to eat at that moment for some reason.
Yeah.
So, and restaurants hate it because they have limited supply of tables, and everybody wants to eat at the same time.
Yeah. You
Shaunak,
suddenly have to deal with a very large peak.
yeah, Shaunak, you have.
We have 64% has answered.
Can you share the poll results?
Yes. Ending poll.
बाकी 36% के hiring freeze है.
results have been shared.
Okay, 18% interview service. Sachin, your business is going well. When I did my survey last time, very few people said they use interview as a service. So this is a good turnout. Okay, so now 51% people is using online test. 25% people are using take-home assignments. And take-home assignments are very, very interesting conversation actually. And I think that is where I think there's no timer, there's no proctoring and all of that, right? So it's very interesting to see how you guys are doing take-home assignments, and is there any change that you have done to your take-home assignments as well? Okay. So 28% people are saying more people are now passing the test, and 39% people are saying more candidates are failing it. I think I'd have to understand how this is happening, and there's no big change. How worried are you? Very worried. 30% people are worried about candidates cheating in the assessments. And 54% people are somewhat worried. So worried people like 84% people. So we have to address this question about cheating with ChatGPT, whether it's online tests, interviews, or take-home assignments. 44% people are okay with candidates using ChatGPT, which is great. For 56% people are not. Have you made any changes to tech assessments? Not yet. 54% companies have not made any changes to the tech assessments. Some companies have the plan. 21% people already made some change. So we love to know what changes you made as well. So in the end, we'll have the discussion and we try to hear from one or two people who have done some changes there. 31% people are saying that their engineering teams are already using ChatGPT. Some are saying sometimes they're using ChatGPT. So again, very consistent here as well. Like 70% people, companies are in developers, and 70% companies are using ChatGPT to some extent, whether sometimes or very actively. So I think good insights here, Shaunak. Please make a note of these two graphs at least, so that we can have a discussion around them later. But I think from this poll, one thing is clear, that proctoring and cheating, right, is one of the topmost things on the minds of people. So how do you guys see this, both of you? What are these concerns, and what are the ways in which this can be mitigated?
Yeah, so I can maybe go first because we've been dealing with the issue of cheating for 8-10 years now. Interestingly, when we started Hacker, very idealistic, we were like, okay, we'll build this and people will do it on their own and there won't be any malpractice. We were thoroughly wrong. Over the years, we have perfected our system to a large extent to prevent people from using unfair means, from something basic like, but not limiting tab switches to taking snapshots and analyzing those snapshots for suspicious activity, to now we have launched a fully proctored browser. We call it browser, but it's basically a desktop application where you cannot go out of the test ecosystem and you just have to do the test with what you have as resources. So I think cheating has always been a concern. It becomes easier with ChatGPT. Even in the past, the method of combating it has been to restricting people from access to other resources while they're taking up the assessment. And the same methodology would be applied in case of ChatGPT. How do you restrict people from accessing it? But unlike other concerns, I think when it comes to ChatGPT, over a period of time, we'll see two schools of thoughts. There'll be companies who will be widely adopting generative AI, and they would actually want people who are comfortable using generative AI and would, can actually get work done through generative AI assistant. And those folks would default to saying, I don't care. In fact, I want people to be used GPT. So do you have something that's embedded or, that's part of the assessment process? And that has some value, right? Because if you're going to use this tech on a day-on-day basis at your work, then you should be able to demonstrate that in an assessment as well. Then there are people who would resist it, and this will happen for quite some time, right? Like any other tech, people would tend to resist it, and eventually, I think that group would fizzle out because if the technology takes mass adoption, it's everywhere. But there is another group or another segment of, I would say, evaluation, which is to understand, and this refers to your earlier point, Nikunj, like just because an email can be written by GPT, does it mean you should not know how to write a good business email? You absolutely should, because that is a fundamental step in your own skill of being, let's say, a salesperson. If I can't craft, it's not about the email, it's about the message. If I can't communicate what I'm selling, then I'm not a salesperson. So the same way, if you don't understand what are the core fundamentals of coding, it's okay if you don't have to generate a sort algorithm. You can just ask GPT to do it. But if you don't understand what it means, then somewhere you're not going to be a very good software developer. And there is some merit in being able to assess those skills. That's been historically the way larger tech companies have assessed people, very focused on algorithmic problems. And I think while that has reduced, as we can evidently see, only 50% are saying coding tests, 25% are saying take home assignments, which are much longer, you know. But that will not go away. And for that, I think people will have to use restrictive environments, maybe proctored environments, browsers like that, what we have launched, to ensure the integrity of the test is not compromised.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that summarizes it pretty well. Mittal, you want to add something?
Yeah, sure. I think cheating might have a bigger impact on assessments, but on interviews, one-on-one interviews, actually, it's relatively difficult to cheat because in a one-on-one interviews, you have the camera turned on and you can always ask the candidate to either share the screen, or you have basic checks like previously, like tab switches were there and other things were there. Plus, in that generally one-on-one interviews are 1 hour interviews or 2 hour interviews, right? Where you ask the candidate to even explain their code and everything. In assessments, either be it online tests or be it take-home assignments, there, you don't have to explain your code or anything like that to anyone. It's generally what companies does is, in the next round of interview, one-on-one interview, they ask that, hey, explain your code which you have given, which you have done in your take-home assignments. Now, take-home assignments have a much higher risk of being cheated by using ChatGPT, unless and until you have created a very complex take-home assignment. But me myself being a primarily an engineer, I know most of the engineering folks, they don't focus a lot on creating assignments, that too complicated ones. Everyone wants to, everyone generally tries to pick up questions from online, and which ChatGPT can easily cheat up. So not much of an impact in interviews, where there is a basic level of proctoring is done. You're checking the tab switches, or you're asking the to share the camera as well as share the screen. Yeah, that's our take. That's my take.
Okay, if I were to think logically on these three options, right? Take-home assignments, interview, and online test. I would say, and I would assume, and guys or people here in the room can verify if that is how people also think about. When I want to test people on a higher order skill, which is architecture of system, design, database choices, right? I have two choices. I can give a take-home assignment where I can give them those options to do it. And I'm also giving a very custom problem. It's not something which you can just put in ChatGPT and ChatGPT will give you the answer. So I can give a take-home assignment, which becomes, and I fully expect that people will be using ChatGPT. In fact, I want them to use ChatGPT because it's a business problem that I have on a day-to-day basis. Now, the challenge, of course, is how much time you will give, and as Sachin said, how much inclination developers will have to take the assignment. And if you have a very strong brand, a very strong reason why people should do it, then you will have a higher fill rate. But that's one way you can make people, or you can test those skills. Or you can outsource it as an interview. Less chances of cheating because interviewer is live, the video is always live. Interviewer is not binary, right? Interviewer is actually asking back and forth questions. So it's very easy to, very difficult for people to cheat. And they, an interviewer, if the interviewer wants to allow usage of ChatGPT or something as per the company policy, they can allow or not. I think online test is where, when I want to run test, I don't want to open ChatGPT too much. I want to test the fundamentals of email writing, fundamentals of writing code, fundamentals of how the loops are written, how many, what kind of bubble sort algorithms are there, or maybe some other algorithmic problem that I want to give, where I want automatic evaluation of the code, and I actually want people to write code, and I actually want people to be tested on the lower level skills as well, and not just system design and higher level, problems, higher level skills. Is that fair, statement to make about choices on among these three assessment tools and their risks, and when to use what?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment. Each has its own value, and each has its own risk, as you may say, in case of integrity, and there's cost associated. So, depending upon the type of role, volume of hiring, and what do you want to achieve out of that, you can use a combination of these. Or just add that in take-home assignments, like you said as well. Uh, GPT has to be looked as more of an enabler and not something that makes the task easier. And to Sachin Mittal's point, it's not that straightforward to come up with those tasks, but I think it's a very natural evolution. People will be forced to do it. Maybe they'll outsource it if they don't want to do it internally. But they're not, even take-home assignments are not going anywhere. The nature of all of this will change.
So one question to you on proctoring, right? With ChatGPT, is there a specific angle to proctoring which is enabled, or is it same? Nothing has changed for you, because eventually it's about locking the system, locking the browser, locking the interface, and not letting the candidate go out of the window, use virtual environments, and always be in the camera and all of that, right? So it's almost the same. Has something changed because of ChatGPT versus Google?
No, you're right. It's almost the same. But what we also have as a measure against people just copy pasting code from online available sources is we also do a plagiarism check. So see, people are very creative. I could turn on the video, I could do everything, and we've had instances where a person is very straight face, but there's somebody who's whispering something very lightly to them and they're able to understand it, even though we don't allow simultaneously sessions to be started for the same test. So somehow they're able to give them like you can connect another screen and see the question, and somebody can whisper. We've come across those situations, and we can further perfect our monitoring, like we've also discussed about audio proctoring. But let's keep those cases aside. Like if somebody is really really smart at doing it, they'll be able to figure out. But in a lot of cases, we also do a further check on plagiarism. Like, is this copied from some other source? Now that's slightly harder with generated code, but this is a problem that even the technology itself has to solve for. Like you need to be able to determine if this is generated versus written, and not just in code, in any aspect. And that's called watermarking. So actually, OpenAI and other generative AI systems are actually working on how you could watermark and hence detect if it is generated. And that's something that we are also keenly following and seeing if we can add to it as well. And at some point, we'll probably introduce. So even if you skirted the system and still generated code, and the employer doesn't want you to do that, then we'll use watermarking technique to detect that.
But basically, help me understand this better. So I'm taking the test, and there's a coding test. There's a problem given to me. Now, first of all, how do I put this problem in ChatGPT if you're not letting me go out of the browser? I can speak, I can dictate, but then I have to dictate it very, very nicely for the audio to get transcribed and all of that. And then the ChatGPT will give me the output. How do I get that output back into the coding window? How do I paste it if the system is locked?
Yeah, it's not easy. Like you said, I have to first do audio. That audio has to be accurate. There has to be another system on which is receiving the audio, and then you get the response. Then you type the response back, and all of this is in a timed environment, right? So you're losing time. So it is hard. Sometimes what people do is they can connect another screen so that the test screen is mirrored there. While with the smart browser, we can detect that as well. Have your friend sitting there who's now reading the question, putting in GPT and getting the response, and then again you have to type it back. So that part is still there. So that's how you could potentially skirt the system, but it's hard.
Okay, so I think the only thing which has changed from Google generation to ChatGPT is that in Google, if I had a coding question, there's no way I can type a very unique question in Google and get the answer for it. In ChatGPT, I can still ask whatever is the coding problem, and it will still give me a solution. So it's my buddy, right?
No,
that's the only thing
not for every problem. Yeah, not for every problem. The simpler problems, yes, those can be compromised. But as you increase complexity, then it doesn't give you a very like you can't just copy and paste.
Got it. Okay, so that was something which I think a lot of people might have that question. So if you have questions around it, I think Rekha is raising her hand. What we'll do, Rekha, is wrap it up and then come to your question towards the end, because I have it's 9 o'clock. So I have a fear that we might not be able to completely wrap it up. So let's just move forward and we'll come to the questions. I think this is relevant to the point. I think ChatGPT mode in Hacker Earth test, I think is something which you guys have recently introduced, right? So where a candidate, if you a recruiter, let me know if my understanding is correct. As a recruiter, I can enable ChatGPT for any questions if I want. If I want not to use not to let them use ChatGPT, I can disable it. If I want them to use ChatGPT and get assistance from ChatGPT, I can enable that mode in that question. It's per question basis, right? So one question may have ChatGPT, or it's like completely test based.
Oh no, it's on a test basis. Once turned on, it will be available for all questions. And you correctly called it out. We have an integration with OpenAI, and you can put in your tokens, and it'll give you the response, and then you can copy and paste the response into the editor. We don't allow copy paste from external sources, but within the test interface, you can copy and paste. One thing that we have done is we are playing around with the restriction on the tokens, both input and output tokens. Tokens is basically what you put as a query. The idea is, you should not be able to copy the entire question and just paste it in and say, okay, give me the exact solution. Because we still want you to be able to understand what the problem is. Like in this case, you can ask them, okay, generate an array which does something, right? But not the whole solution. And that's why we are restricting tokens to see if we can make it more of an assistant and not somebody who's doing your assessment for you.
Great. Yeah, this is a good innovation, interesting use case. I think some people who want to enable ChatGPT access to the candidates may look into it. Now, I think we talked about basic questions around changing skills in the industry and how to assess, and have there been any changes in the assessment side of the tech assessment interviews. So now, it's looking like from where this ChatGPT thing came, right? Suddenly everything is haywire. We have to now rewire everything. We have to look at it, what's going on. I think people are already answering the poll where they're saying they're very, very worried, or at least somewhat worried about how a candidate's taking the test. So one question is why why this thing happened, and is there no brighter side to it? And I think we mentioned and we talked about it, that there's a brighter side. Just like software developers getting affected as well as getting a lot of benefit out of this. I think recruiters and TA folks also have a lot of brighter side to attach to it as well. So how can tech hiring become easy? And I think simple sourcing is one thing that is something which is now becoming possible because of LLMs. So remember, we used to, whenever you're searching for, let's say, Java full stack developer, you type Java plus React in the Boolean search. Then you try to figure out, oh, this is also giving you results of DevOps people. Then you remove DevOps people somehow because you only want full stack. So you add and subtract a lot of keywords, and keywords really don't capture the context of the role. So now with generative AI and LLM kind of technology, now recruiters can actually do a search based on role context. They just have to type, or they can type in natural language that, okay, this is a kind of role I have. Now give me the people who are relevant for this role. And now it understands all of that, right? So this is something which we also launched recently. There's a link here, maybe in the chat, if someone can put it, people can play with it and give us feedback. But this kind of, makes it easy for TA folks to find the right people, so that now there's so many people out there. If you are able to find the right people faster, then your job gets reduced, and now you can use downstream more tools and more smart tools like Hacker Earth and Interview Vector downstream, because now you have very, very highly relevant profiles coming to you. So the sourcing becomes easy. And I think one interesting thing was faster and better screening. I think all recruiters typically do a screening of candidates when they apply. And so far, it can be divided into two parts, where a recruiter asks information about a candidate's basic stats about their location, salary, their interest in this role, and there's overall screening on the candidate vital stats or data side. And then typically recruiters are also given a mandate that, okay, whenever you talk, also check if the person has skills on something, right? Whether it's AWS environment, whether it is understanding of scalability on Node.js or something like that, right? And it's very difficult for recruiters to understand that. And Sachin gave me an example that at Interview Vector, they help a customer get these kind of questions set up. so that a recruiter can actually ask intelligent questions in the screening round. And now example here is on the left where you can ask ChatGPT that this is my role, and this is just a very fast prompt that I created. You can also, of course, add more nuance to it. But essentially, as a recruiter, now you have some questions that you can ask, and it also lets you know what kind of response you should get from the candidate. So you have some context about what will they answer. Not very recommended, highly recommended to get into technical nitty-gritties. I see a lot of TA folks who try to talk too much about technical stuff, and engineers sometimes don't like it. But I think at least recruiters can become more smart in understanding what's happening. And I think Victor would also, make a case that all tech recruiters and tech TA folks should have, understanding of technology. Victor actually even codes, right? So I think having a technical background is important, but I think it's important at least to, at a higher level, understand if what the candidate knows about a specific area. So I think that's one example on the left side where a recruiter gets it and recruiter can ask the questions. On the right side, now there are tools coming up where you don't have to ask. They can be interview, which can be done by the screening tool itself. And again, this is an example of what we are coming up on CutShort, where in addition to asking those questions around candidate experience, salary, location, preference, all of that, you can also ask the AI to check their skills or knowledge in some topics. And this is not really skills, like these are not PHP, Python kind of languages and programming frameworks. These are basically some area, like it could be prompt engineering, it could be Node.js scalability, it could be database, schema design, something that your engineering manager or hiring manager has given you that, check their understanding on these 2-3 things. These are important to us. So those human level things that are important to you, you can also ask those questions or give the AI input. And then once given that, the candidate on the left, you can see the recruiter sends those questions, which are factual data points. And it also gives you the scalability with Node.js kind of topic, and it starts an interview. So this is how an interview will soon progress on CutShort, where, with Screener, you'll also be able to test for these skills. And on the right-hand side, a recruiter will get this data back that, okay, this is our overall qualifying data about a candidate. And also AI did a small assessment on these topics and was able to assess or give some rating. So either recruiters can do on their own, or recruiters can leave the AI to do the niche level screening. So this is again one of the areas where with ChatGPT and with LLMs, recruiters can really up the game in terms of getting the right profiles faster, do the screening, and then really comes the human part of it, which I keep repeating all the time, that in today's market, when there's so many candidates, so many companies competing for the talent, the recruiting, the edge is all about understanding who are the right candidates, a few of them, and really go after them. And how do you, if you're able to get 15, 20 of them, 25 of them, that's the time for recruiter to really don the hat of a recruiter, not in the, the initial calling and, searching, Boolean search and all of that. That wastes too much of time for a recruiter. And I think those are the important survival and thriving skills that TA folks will also, eventually have to have. So this is an example of, not everything is bad about this whole thing. It's a silver lining, right? So there's some things which are challenges, but that's how the industry is progressing. And I think the people who are here, 73 people are still online, are still here. They want to learn and understand, and they want to progress. So I think on that note, I'll stop here. This is the structured content or conversation that we wanted to have. Now we are open to have questions. What's on your mind? Thanks.
I'd like to add just 1 or 2 things that I wanted to say.
Sure. Go ahead.
I think there are 2 things that are going to happen. One is, being since ChatGPT is already there, a lot of resumes are going to look similar. So assessments is going to become interviews is going to become more and more important, and TAs or engineering leaders will have to use assessments or will have to use ChatGPT and other tools which are coming up to create their own processes, find out the questions that like you mentioned, and assess the candidates better. Second is, I think the importance of personalized touch is also going to increase, because I know, take it a 30-70 rule, for example. Let's say there are 30% or 20% of the recruiters are going to use ChatGPT in the right manner, but 80% of the recruiters might not be able to use it in the personalized manner, and they're going to create similar JDs or similar other similar emails. And in that case, how personalized your touch is, how are you selling your company to the candidate, that is going to become more and more important. Because if everything looks like it's at the end of the day your sales skill, how are you able to convince the candidate, that is going to become important. So the role of TA is going to be harder as well. It's not, and it's going to be easier as well in some sense.
Yeah, in that analogy, right? It's a higher level, higher order skill for a TA person to build that rapport, to sell, that company, the role, which is, and the lower level skill is, operationally
Right.
searching people, qualifying them on basic skills. And that part can be done by machines, and this part becomes more important. And ironically, while we think AI will take away the human part, actually human,
Going to become more important.
They become more important than ever because everything is automated, right? So I think Sachin was mentioning yesterday, there's so much of noise which is increasing. People are writing emails, people are writing LinkedIn posts, and now no one can tell, who's writing, who actually thinks what they're writing, or they're just putting it out from whatever they found on ChatGPT, right? So noise increases, and hence the human interactions are going to become more important because that's where real game is gonna be played out. You want to add something? The final note, Sachin Gupta, as well? Then maybe take the questions.
I think you guys have summarized it well, so I'm not gonna repeat. But I'll just say that instead of focusing on what automation or GPT takes away from my job, people should focus on what it helps you do better and what you can focus on, and only you can focus on, right? So don't worry about, hey, this is going to kill my job, but focus on, it allows me to do these things in a much better way. So let me focus and double down on those, and your value would only increase if you take that mindset.
Okay, so I think with that, it's a great wrap to the discussion that we had. Now we are open to questions. So Rekha, you have been raising your hand. Sorry to keep you waiting. Please ask your question.
Yeah, first thing I wanted to say that HR is a very human thing. I mean, no AI can replace what I do. I've been a recruiter for 20 years now. The way I look at a CV, the way, what my gut feel says and what I do, I've had almost 100% hit rate always when I shortlist a CV. So I don't believe in an AI shortlisting, at least, number one. Number two, there is nothing like somebody cheating in an assessment. Only an intelligent person can cheat. Now, if you know how to cheat, that means you have understood what has to be done. I'll give you an example. We were trying to hire freshers for a company where I was reaching out to colleges where engineers with 80+% were given a small task, a small coding assignment. And we were very, very okay to anybody getting the code written from anybody by anybody, as long as they could handle the questions in the interview. Believe it or not, out of 867 people that we reached out to, we got 1%. Meaning, my tech person and me didn't mind if they got their lecturer or their friend or brother or sister do the coding for them. They couldn't even explain what was done. They couldn't even talk about what was submitted. So I think people who can cheat are people who are actually intelligent, if they can, number one. And number two, I think people should depend more on psychometric tests whenever you're talking about assessments. There you can, 90% of the times at least, not cheat. I mean, your true self will come out. The way these questionnaires are drafted, etc. Almost all the psychometric tests, they're almost 80%, 90% up to the mark. So when you're talking about a technical skill, if somebody is cheating in an assessment test using AI, I'll be very happy with such a person, because end of the day, for me, my work should be done. And if we can get it done at the time of the interview, why not on the job? This used to happen like, I was a physics student, and in our lab, whenever we had these experiments to do, we used to have 3-4 different ratings that we would take, and the final answer had to be arrived at. Me and my friend, whenever me and my partner, whenever we wouldn't get the values, we would kind of tweak one of the values to get the final answer. And we would tweak it in such a manner that there'll be a 0.01%, 0.01 difference or something in the final value. And once I heard my lecturer say, he thought we went out, and he said, these girls finish first every week, and I know they cheat. And he used to ask us promptly, have you got the values, or have you, just put them? No, sir, we got it. So he says, every week I know they're, manipulating. He said, in the exam, this is more important. If you know how to get your final value and still get away with it, that's more important. So I think that's what applies here also.
Yep, absolutely. I think, Shaunak, do we have any questions that have come up? I'm just looking at the chat.
Yeah,
screen.
there are multiple questions. I think the chat has been quite interesting.
And how much time we have until 9:30?
Yeah.
So 12
So
minutes.
yeah.
Please, you can turn on your videos, guys. Let's, if it's possible, let's keep interactions very informal. But let's try to take less time, make quick points, and then so that more people get a chance to talk, and then we also get more topics to cover as fast as possible.
One more thing I've noticed about ChatGPT is there are a lot of grammatical errors. When you talk about an output that it brings out, if people are just doing a cut-paste job, then God save them.
Yeah.
I think from the questions, I think there's a lot of inclination to understand how they can use, how the audience is asking is how they can use the ChatGPT or any of the GenAI tools or something to automate a lot of things. So including candidate engagement, analytics. I think the inclination seems to be more on automation using GenAI for the hiring process.
Okay, so I think that is a bit off topic. I think let's focus more on technical assessments and interviews. Overall, where ChatGPT can be used to boost the productivity of TA leaders and recruiters. That's a bigger topic. So let's cover that in a separate session later on. Any questions? I think in the poll, people answered that they have made some changes to the tech assessment process already. So is there anyone who has done that? You were doing assessments or take-home assignments in a different way, and then recently you changed it. Is anyone out here who has done that?
So, Nikunj, what we did is we actually simplified the question. Instead of making something very complicated, which generally maybe ChatGPT will not be able to solve, we simplified the question. We wanted more and more people to come in. What we have done is we have changed our assessment, our pointings, scoring system for the assessment. So if somebody had submitted a code, and we give them take-home assignments. These are very small tasks, but what we are trying to assess from those tasks is very important when we have created those assignments. So I think keeping that in mind is very, very important. So we give them 2 tasks. One is very much relevant to, okay, how is their design sense, UI sense, scalability, etc. Second one is very much focused on what they do in terms of how they think in terms of logic, complexity of solving a problem, etc. So we now analyze their code in more deeper way and try to score it based on that. We try to see if they have named their variables correctly, if they have basic skills of writing a better code in place. If they have those disciplines in place, I think, and a better logic in their that they understand, we then ask these people to come into interview. And then in interview, because if you have only used ChatGPT to solve those problems, you have not got deeper into the problem and you have not thought about a lot of things around it, all the corner cases, etc. So what we do generally is in the interview, then we have a few questions which are related to the same problem, but around it. So if you have given enough time already, you already have thought about it, and that generally comes up in the interview. So it's a mix of that. So I would say simplifying it, because what we want is, we do not have any problem if somebody uses Google or ChatGPT to create code, as long as they understand what they have done. It's very much similar to what Rekhaji also said, is you have to be smart to cheat. So we just try to verify, even if you have cheated, are you smart enough to understand what the code is?
Yeah, and that's not even cheating in that case, right? Because you expected them to use
exactly.
Yep. So,
Exactly. So most of the people, they fail in that. So we have seen a lot of high success rate in terms of when they submit the code. Earlier, people were not able to complete the task, but then we are able to reject a lot of them in our assessment only, even before interview, because we now give because we have now increased our standard, where we even focus on your variable naming, your the scalability. If you have, so we look for at least one very impressive thing about your code, and along with that, a few other good things in the code. So kind of that.
yeah, it's a very smart thing to do, Shashank. So can you tell us a bit about your company? It's like small company, big company, and are you in TA, or are you involved in tech as well? So what is your role, and what does the company do?
So so I'm the founder of a startups studio. We are a small team. We have created a bunch of products for e-commerce merchants, and we currently serve around 20,000 businesses across the globe. And it's a typical SaaS model. We charge them somewhere between $15 to $50 a month. So that has been the thing. We are very, very product focused. That has been a strength of our team in SaaS. We were only 9 people with just 2 developers till November, and we have doubled our team from November till today. So
You also hired a few on CutShort.
Everybody on CutShort.
Everybody on CutShort, great. So yeah, the reason I asked you that question, because I think the application that you did, the simplification of the problem that you did, I was just trying to see if you are like a recruiter, or you are a tech manager, and you are doing
I take care of the recruiting as well. I was fortunate that I had an intern who was able, and she was wonderfully able to shortlist and align interviews, etc. So take care of all the other jobs. While I was primarily focusing on this, so I have spent a lot of time in perfecting the assessment. If candidates are not able to, so when we started hiring, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, our initial 2 guys through CutShort, that was when we used to sit in the same office. So when we used to hire at that time, our problem statement was very complex, very complicated, and ultimately people were not giving enough time to solve it. People have very small bandwidth and very few hours to solve something, and they should see something as very easy, very quick, that can be done. If just by reading the problem statement, they feel like, okay, this is so complicated, this is going to take 6 hours, they are generally not going to start. So we try to make it very simple, but at the same time, we know why we have designed it like that, and what are the interesting points, what are the interesting nuances even in that small task. And that's what we then try to assess very carefully. So we spend a lot of time.
our developers spend a lot of time. I have put in place those processes of what are the things that we are going to assess, how much point are we going to give, and when. And then I take care of interviews personally. So I mean, I take care of interviews end to end, so I can.
So you are the founder, you are the hiring manager, and you are the recruiter, right? So it's easy for you. Now,
Yeah.
what I would love to understand from the people in the room is, for this topic, right, where you are the common stakeholder, right? So you are in the TA department, and then you have engineering manager, hiring manager, who is your counterpart, who is a stakeholder. These discussions will, or the changes or the evaluation of your assessment strategy, will this be under the bucket or under the purview of the engineering team, who is going to drive this change, who is going to talk about the whole thing with you, or you are going to go and talk to them about this? And this is what I know. We had this webinar today where we learned something. So do we want to make changes? So is it that is you are going to go to them, or they are going to come to you? And Victor is smiling, so I am sure he has, he has seen the industry, so he can come to it later, come to it. But I think anybody, raise your hand if you think a recruiting team's job is to go and talk to the engineering managers and hiring managers and talk about it. Can you raise your hands?
Nikunj, I'll do you one better. Sunetra is here. Bring her on. You need to hear someone spit facts for a change. There is a lot of utopian talk out here. None of that matters. Sunetra, talk sense.
Okay, Sunetra,
Spit
show us the stark and dark reality.
Right. So this is completely my personal opinion. I think
Yeah.
ChatGPT
So
is
now I think now we are kind of out of the formal mode, since Victor has started speaking, right? So the formality is out of the window, and everything is now what happens here stays here. So we can maybe, if we're done, we can just stop the recording as well, Shaunak,
yeah. That
right?
would be
And we can just have a,
I'll
So
end the
Sunetra, the tension ho
spotlight
gaya.
mode as well.
Now
Yes, switch off everything. It's fine.
no rant, but rant also can be done, but on Fridays, not on Wednesdays.
But Sunetra, facts, yeah. Let's do it.
right. So the personal opinion on ChatGPT, which I feel is, I think it is going to only create an additional layer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now I can. Right. I think it is going to create additional layer of work for the TA folks and the interviewers, because now you will also have to find out who is genuine amongst them, right? Each and every one is going to start using ChatGPT, the candidates, the interviewers, the founders, the TA folks, right? So like Nikunj, you mentioned, there's going to be a lot of noise, and to find those genuine ones or the gems ones are going to be difficult. I think the work is going to get a little more trickier for TA folks and the interviewers to strongly find out who's really the worth the role, and not go by just the assessments coming via ChatGPT or assessments via other tools. This is my genuine opinion, that it's only going to get trickier day by day.
So Sachin, Mittal, you there, right?
Yep.
Good news for you. 4 interviews.
बस अभी मैं साइड अप लिंक भेज रहा हूँ.
If the more interviews, some will be outsourced, some will be done in-house, right? So your stock is up.